Welcome everyone to another Careers Division video focusing on the 2021 award winners. And today we are talking about the Careers Division Best Published Paper Award, which is only the second time that we've actually done this award. With us today in this meeting are the award winners and the committee chair. And let me start by congratulating our winners of the Best Published Paper Award with their paper When People Don't Realize Their Career Desires Towards a Theory of Career in Action, Marijke Verbruggen and Ans de Vos. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also with us today is the committee chair. And the committee for this award this year consisted of Mina Beeke, Matthew Bidwell, Bert Schreurs, and the chair, she's with us, Corinne Post. Welcome.
Thank you. I was extremely happy when I got the email from you, Jos, that we won the award. Of course, you hope for it when you submit the paper, but you never expect it. So it was a complete surprise. It made my day. I was very happy. I'm very grateful to win this award.
Yeah, I can totally agree with what Marijke says. I think we were kind of a little bit last minute, like that you suggested, Marijke, maybe we can submit it, and we thought, yeah, why not? So, and I was also, we had a very positive experience during the review process of the paper with a very enthusiastic editor, and it's also very nice to see that it's not only her enthusiasm, but also of a broader community that we see recognized being here. So yeah, very happy with that. Yeah.
So what the committee really liked about this paper is that it challenged this common assumption and the big picture of where careers research is, which is around, people needing to take charge or taking charge of their careers and making choices. And here they challenged those assumptions by putting together a paper that explains why people fail to pursue the dreams that they have, right? So I think they make a very compelling argument into introduction. And I think we all know people who say, oh, I want to change jobs, I'm not going to be here much longer. I want to do something different, or I want to start my own business. And they stay. They don't pursue their dreams and their career aspirations. So I think this is a very interesting paper that really turns sort of people's heads, if you like, because it looks at a very different aspect. It challenges some of the assumptions that people just, follow their dreams or get things done. And it has a very complete model as well.
Actually, what the starting point of our paper was indeed the observation that many people talk about wanting to change jobs, wanting to start his own business. But a lot of them, when you talk to them a few years later, they haven't acted on it, or they have looked a little bit, but they didn't progress with their dreams. So that's really fascinating. And that's for me as well, as a researcher, this observation was very triggering and stimulated us to look further into the literature, mainly into behavioral decision science, to try to understand this phenomenon. So the intriguing elements of this observation, especially when we look at the career literature, always focusing or mainly focusing on, well, you have a desire and then you take steps and then in the end you make the transition and what are the effects of the transition. So this focus on this linear process is very dominant actually in the career literature, also the agency element, of course, and almost no paper, of course, there is some attention to this non-linearity, but not that much. And that's, me myself, I found it really fascinating. And I also found it very triggering to discover all this literature from behavioral decision science. The psychology of doing nothing was very inspirational for our paper. And I've never heard of it before. So when we digged into this literature, we got really excited and enthusiastic about it, and then making this applicable to the career, what we know about careers, was for me myself one of the driving forces and the things I liked the most in the process.
And I was very happy that Marijke asked me to join her in elaborating on that idea. I was already longer for a longer time focusing on the bounded rationality and how that is affecting us in our behavior choices, more focusing on the short term, for instance, and on the long term. And I think what this paper brought us towards was also this idea that it is we add to understanding why is something not happening. And there is this kind of paradoxical stance in the literature that we focus all the time on changes in career dynamics and things like that. And at the same time, for a majority of people, there is more stability than change, which to a certain extent makes sense. If we would be changing all the time, that would also not be sustainable probably. But then all the research we're doing, we add to understanding that change by focusing on what explains why people change, but we lack the emphasis on why do people stay where they are, and not because they don't see the need, but even though they might see the need or feel the desire to change, and what explains why they still stay put. And for me, that is also something that is also addressing, I think, something that happens a lot in reality, and where also practitioners and companies have a lot to learn to understand how to break through these cognitive processes that explain why people behave like that, and how they actually also instill that in the way they are managing people and having career policies in place.
So what it does, what we thought it does, is that it opens up a whole new avenue of research, right? With multiple little streets going off that avenue. There's a lot to unpack in the theory and the model that's proposed in this paper, between the inertia enhancing mechanisms that you bring up, people being afraid and anxious about making a change is one. The short-term, emphasis on short-term cost disproportionately over potential long-term gains. And also those high cognitive demands that paralyze people, right? So just that aspect is one already. Then you also examine how characteristics of the desired change are likely to, make it more or less likely that you're actually going to change. You look at the social context, and then you also pack on or add on, implications for future career choices. So this dynamic explanation for how that affects, how those non-choices affect later choices as well. So I think, again, opening a new avenue, and then all these different branches you could go through. So we think that this paper will, as a committee, we saw the potential for a lot of new work emerging from this paper. So that's something that really drew us. And then in addition, it's very practical, right? Like you mentioned, so you could use it for career counselors or HR. You can really help people understand what's holding them back, and by identifying what aspect of, whether it's that dream itself or characteristics of that dream, or is it some of what fears in particular, then that can be addressed perhaps through counseling or other venues. But I also sort of think it almost looks like the outline of a self-help book. You could see how that could be in a book in a store about, why haven't you made your dream choices yet, and how can you do it? So I think that's pretty cool too. So I think that the fact that for a conceptual paper, also having very practical implications made it really stand out.
I think both Ans and I are working on really trying to test or trying to understand better this phenomenon and explore a little bit the propositions that we have made in our paper. So I think we are doing a lot of different studies at the moment, both of us with our research teams, and we also try to exchange our knowledge a little bit. What are we doing? Among other things, we are doing vignette studies to test these mechanisms that we propose, the complexity, the short-term versus long-term, the short-term cost versus long-term gains, and the emotions, the anxiety that people have. We are also doing an interview study to understand how people try to understand it themselves, how they experience this process of career inaction, the tensions that they are struggling with, because we notice that in our interviews that we have I don't know, around 40 interviews, and these people They really want to change something, but you feel that they struggle with these tensions about things that keep them in their job, and also excuses they kind of make for why they don't change. So it's very interesting to in that way try to understand the stories behind this phenomenon, what people go through, while not making work of their dreams. Also interesting, they often postpone it. They say, well, I will definitely do it, but like in 10 years or so.
It challenges us again as career researchers to consider like what is an appropriate way to study careers. And we used to say that quite easily in our introduction or mainly discussion sections of papers, that we need longitudinal studies to really understand careers. But yet at the same time, we tend to also in empirical research kind of simplify something in some relationships that we can capture in a certain amount of time at best, when we do have the opportunity for longitudinal research. And I think our thinking about the career in action is also adding to that recognition that to fully understand careers, you maybe have to accept also that you can never fully grasp that by just following people for a certain amount of time or asking them questions. Like what we noticed in some interviews we did, like when you do this by asking people to look backward, that people are much more easier in their narratives to have already incorporated like a story on why they did not do something. So they have already, especially when they bring that to you as an interviewer, they have the story, and they are also much more eager to elaborate on what they did change rather than that what they did not change, or they might even have forgotten about it. So but that makes it so interesting. I think that is something we just have to embrace, that we are studying a complex phenomenon, and that is good, and that we will never have the ideal research method, I think, to shed a complete empirical light on this, but that it's maybe also not always necessary to have that all in statistics or in empirical numbers being confirmed, but that it is on, also by doing the interviews, but also maybe in the future also to have some more quantitative data collection, and to add it maybe also with archival data or more objective data of people's career trajectories, that all together we can shed light on this phenomenon, rather than saying we now have fully tested a model, because it is a phenomenon that we're trying to understand from different perspectives. And that's for me, that's at this point in my career, then it's something I find very fulfilling to do, also accepting that there is not an easy answer to that in an empirical way, but that it is bringing us rich research questions to study.
Absolutely. So in terms of process, I can tell you what the criteria were. I mean, the idea was we had 13 papers and we had 5 different criteria, which really hit on very different dimensions for this overall best paper award, right? So what we did as a committee is each one of us independently read all the 13 papers and provided our feedback on each of these 5 dimensions. And each paper clearly had strength on at least one of the dimensions, right? And eventually we average our scores, and if there are any discrepancies, we discuss them. But it turns out that this winning paper had, the highest score on all 5 dimensions, right? Or at least 4. I think one of the dimensions is empirical, but also touches on the innovative methods, right? Which one can think about as one is thinking about a conceptual paper as well. So I think the reason why this paper won is it does something pretty rare, right? It's a conceptual paper, and so it addresses a phenomenon that's interesting, that all of us can relate to, either ourselves in one point in our lives, not doing something we aspire to, or knowing somebody close to us that keeps talking about their dreams and never acts up on it. So it's a phenomenon that's interesting, that we can all relate to, that also challenges what sort of the field is generally doing. So that suddenly you got to stop and think differently. So it's got this scholarly impact, this novelty, this phenomenon-based interesting piece, and it's also practically relevant, right? It's got this practical relevance, and it also, I think what inspired us as well is that your propositions seem very immediately sort of testable. So you can immediately see how this, and yes, I got your whole piece about not being able to test the whole model, but we can still examine, these different propositions. So I think that was really key here. So if you're thinking about whether your paper might be a good, have a good chance for this award, I would say, look at the criteria, see if you match all of them. But more broadly, what I'm hoping this paper or this award does is inspires you to think about doing research that has an impact beyond just the nice empirical work or beyond the brand new wild idea, to have a paper that has this scholarly impact and also is important and interesting and is relevant in the real world. So thinking about all those things together, I think, and letting you be inspired by questions that have this sort of multiple way of impacting our field and people living their lives and having their careers.
The first draft of this paper, it goes back to 2016, I think, when I first wrote this part of this paper, and it was my baby, this paper. So, and I didn't dare to send it to a journal. So I was stuck in this inaction phase because I didn't want to fail. And then I luckily asked Ans. That for me, that asking Ans was actually the way to dare to send it into AMR, because that was what I wanted to do, but I failed. I feared that I would fail. And then together with Ans, when you work together, it's always better. And then we improved the paper, and we took action together, and then we submitted it to AMR. So actually, the main point I wanted to say is, like, if you find something intriguing and if you really believe in something, of course, you need to take into account the feedback from the reviewers, and they challenge you and stuff like that. But if you really are intrigued by something, explore it further and don't throw it away if it's really something that you find interesting and you get passionate about. And perhaps find a co-author that can get you into action and help you improve the paper. So that's what I would try to say to the career scholars with doubts about their work.
That's maybe a nice summary, Marijke, to show that the insights from the paper might not only be relevant to understand career phenomena, but also apply this. And I think 2 steps there, dare to move on with an idea that you might don't find easily accepted at first instance. And then also when you are happy with the result you accomplished, don't feel, dare to submit it, because if we hadn't done that, then we wouldn't have won. So it's also like daring to take charge and sometimes taking, don't postpone too long, but just act upon the opportunities that are there and collaborate with people that you like collaborating with, because I think it was an intense process also, but something also that I learned a lot during the process, not only on those different theories that I never heard about before, but I also learned about writing this kind of a paper for an AMR outlet, but also I learned about collaborating intensely, in this case with Marijke, which was also very nice to do. And we're still working on other projects together also. So I think, then it's nice to have this award, but it's just, I think maybe also a natural consequence of just daring to, to go for something as Marijke initiated. And I'm very happy that I have become part of that journey. So thank you for that, Marijke.
I just wanted to say, Corinne, to you and the committee, thank you so much for going through 13 papers and coming up with a decision for this award. That's really much appreciated. Thank all 3 of you for being in this video and for having this chat about the Best Published Paper Award winner for 2021. We are going to celebrate your success once more during the business meeting at the annual conference, of course. But I would encourage everyone who hasn't read it yet, please find the award-winning paper. You can find it on the AMR website. It was published last year, and it is a very good read.